Marvel had a very clear idea of the kind of spectacle that they wanted, which was great for me because then I had something to build off of, and the only thing I was interested in building was, well, how do we get there? How does that action tell us something about the characters we didn't know, so it's not just a checklist. Part of the mission statement of the Avengers was to be iconic but not bash it over the head. Because, you know, like Iron Man, you want to keep it grounded somewhat.
That grounded tone is something that we try to apply across the movie. And so when it came to Avengers, the thing about tone was, let's keep it real, let's keep it grounded. Let's see what would happen if we put all these people together and this situation really occurred. And I think that's why the opening sequence, this big research facility exploding, I think it's really important that we see it really collapse and that it has a real world implication. And that really Fury's shaken to the core by it.
Coulson, get back to base.
This is a level 7.
As of right now, we are at war.
The NASA facility in Cleveland was a spectacular location. We wanted a location that you can believe is a mile underground that had a very impressive architecture to reveal our villain. When they found this location, we looked at that and we said, wow, we have to shoot here.
This is really a one-of-a-kind, amazing facility. It's the largest space simulation facility in the world. What we're standing in here is the vacuum chamber. This is where we simulate those conditions in space. And in space, you have no air. It's just a vacuum. So we can pull all the air out of this chamber and simulate those conditions. And being a chamber of this size, as you can see, 122 feet tall and 100-foot diameter, it's really a magnificent sight.
Something like this isn't really something you can build. It gives the movie great scope. It's one of the loveliest and actually sexiest places we've shot in. Every shot feels enormously epic, which is a good way to start.
The technology of S.H.I.E.L.D., which up to this point has been a few nifty gadgets, but mainly a lot of sedans and futuristic-looking cars and things like that. Well, in this movie, we introduce what comic fans always sort of thought might be just out of frame or just above the clouds in some of the other films, the helicarrier.
It's an aircraft carrier slash space shuttle of some kind. It goes like every different level. You see us like disappearing into the clouds. It's impossible to trace. It is S.H.I.E.L.D. on the fly, and it's probably going to blow some fanboys' minds. I don't think they'll ever recover.
It was part of the bargain with Marvel right away. They wanted the helicarrier, and I wasn't about to say no. It looks amazing. When it was first designed in the 60s, it had little propellers. Since then, they invented science, and we realized that might not actually stay up. You know, it's always the idea was this floating fortress. And we talked a lot about, you know, how do we make it work? We went to a more traditional aircraft carrier design, partially because, you know, in the comics, it's very bottom heavy. It looks like this enormous glass palace you just couldn't stay up. And, you know, the streamlined design that the guys came up with was beautiful, but also you could just buy it. It was towing the line between reality and fantasy.
The journey to how that idea of the helicarrier became the helicarrier that's in the movie has been really interesting. It was kind of late in the process of the story development where we said, you know what, we should see the helicarrier take off out of the water.
We shot it on a parking lot in Albuquerque for all the scenes that has Mark Ruffalo and Scarlett and Chris. Pretty much that's all that is real. There's a few people walking around, there's a couple of trucks, there's I think 1 or 2 planes are real, but everything else is completely digital. It was designed so that the reflection and the refractions that we were getting was big enough to give us some bounds so that we could actually recreate it and feel that you were in a takeoff area of some sort of carrier in the water, but nobody really knows until it takes off that it's actually a flying ship.
You need the audience to experience it with Steve and Bruce, who really are, more than anybody else on the team, audience identification figures. To experience with them both the magnificence and the absurdity of this thing is taking off or flying. And that sequence became actually a very important part of the emotional journey of the thing.
That is beautiful imagery. That is actually beautiful imagery. It really is.
When Captain America and Bruce Banner walk onto the helicarrier for the first time, you can see it in their eyes. They're impressed. I mean, everyone who walked onto the set was impressed. So you bring them on the set for the first time, it is truly a wonder.
I'm really looking forward to all aspects of shooting in here. It's such a beautiful place to explore photographically. All sorts of lovely foreground detail that James Chinlund, the designer, has given us. So, I mean, it's a whole panoply of angles. I mean, I'm in options paralysis where we're like going, my God, every angle is a good one.
Just going, you know, my relationship to Jeremy to sort of hold that relationship.
When the action really ramps up and we can really start working with dynamic camera moves in here, which will allow us to track over and around all these consoles and create a sense of movement and dynamism.
They'll come back.
I write for visual moments, particularly something like this. When these guys create something where you see the team together, or you see someone in the environment, or you see the actor doing the action, everybody on board suddenly is seeing either what I saw or what I'm really glad they saw. You see any of these things realized, and you go, oh, it looks awesome.
I think it's the grounded nature with which Joss has infused this film that is, in my mind, a throwback to what people loved in Iron Man. Joss was just dedicated to seeing that through.
In the end, I think when the film goer sees the final product, they appreciate it just as much as we do.
That's what makes it ultimately much more rewarding. When Marvel started, with Iron Man, Robert Downey Jr., they made a statement, boom, we care about the acting, we care about the characters, we're gonna take you on that journey with them and really let them roll.
I was saying, dude, where's my franchise? I had a feeling that given the opportunity, I could at least do as well as all the other schmucks, and here we are.
Robert, he's kind of like the leader of the band. He's the guy who just wants to take things in hand and make everybody's comfortable, bring in the new guys, you know, bring it all together and sort of be at the center of it. And he does it beautifully.
He started it all. He's kind of the godfather of the Avengers in a sense, you know.
He was the first person I called when they offered it to me. I knew in his presence I'd be in really good hands.
I'm a huge fan of the way you use control and turn into a giant green rage monster.
I remember watching Iron Man and I was doing a television job in Sweden and I absolutely loved it. And cut to 3 years later and I'm in a scene with Iron Man. I'm a huge tennis fan and kept saying it's like playing tennis with Roger Federer in that he makes you look good.
All right, everybody go home.
Chris Hemsworth walks in the room like Thor, because he's 9 feet tall, and he's gorgeous, and he's like, I'm Thor, I'm Australian, everything is good.
No one told me it wasn't fancy dress. This is embarrassing.
I'd seen the film Thor, but I had never seen him in person with the whole shebang, and you know, you're just like, damn, it's God of Thunder. And you see that, and you're like, man, now this is really cool. Now this outfit I'm wearing actually fits.
There's such a freedom that we have because we had this experience together, not just of being in the film, but of kind of seeing the film into the world. And, you know, it was the first, really the hugest thing that we'd ever done. And he's just a fantastic actor. And he's so committed. If you like each other and respect each other, and if you trust each other, you can make each other better. And I think Chris Hemsworth makes me better. And I hope he'd say the same of me.
Chris Evans has risen to the forefront of Steve Rogers. If you look at Chris Evans, you forget any role he's ever played before, and all you can see is Steve Rogers.
With Captain America, it's a whole new ballgame because it's a whole new era, and he really did an amazing job.
Running the lives of everyone on this ship isn't funny. No offense, Tom.
It's all right. I would have come on board if I could handle point you think.
Working with Evans is very cool. I'm wildly impressed with him.
Hulk. Smash.
The Hulk. Mark Ruffalo was my first choice. I had a list. It was very short. His name was at the top. As Banner, he's very vulnerable. He's very funny. He's very loose. But there's this coiled element. It's a wonderful performance.
With Mark Ruffalo, I have someone who I would be happy to do every scene with for the rest of my life.
Damn straight.
Everything that he does when you see him work is almost like this completely unplanned and perfectly inspired accident. I don't know how to describe it any other way.
Did I look like I knew how to ride a bike?
It's just brilliant to watch him and brilliant to act with him because you never know what's going to come from him, and watching him transform into Hulk is painful. It's not the way that we are used to seeing it where somebody just kind of grows into this bigger thing. It's like something like a beast has taken over him.
You know, we're building every expression and movement that the Hulk does off of Mark.
They're my teeth. They use my teeth.
Scarlett Johansson is a Black Widow, and her character is a particularly fun one to have because she has a darkness that the others don't really share.
She's one of those rare people who just says whatever's on her mind, and I appreciate that in her.
I'm not impressed.
She embraces the toughness of her character. She makes it seem effortless, and that's very difficult to do. Guys always say, I don't care how strong a girl is, she can't knock me out. But she has this bigness of character that allows her to pull off the things that she does.
Just like Budapest all over again. You and I remember Budapest very differently.
Jeremy, as an actor, I think, brings a wry, brooding, sarcastic, devil-may-care attitude to the character, and that's just part of his personality coming through. And that's what makes the casting so inspired, is that Jeremy has that kind of rogue quality, and that's what makes him so much fun to watch.
Don't clap and play, Renner.
Jeremy is great at being in the middle of tense situations and just bringing that extremely dry. This isn't affecting me. It is, but I either won't show it or don't know it. And that's what's so gripping about him. And he's very precise. He can, work like a stuntman, but at the same time, he moves with this extreme precision, which is so perfect for Hawkeye. Kobe had absolute authority. She had just a physical confidence. You don't look at her and go, oh, they cast a beautiful woman as a soldier. You look at her and go, that person fought her way through the ranks.
Sir, the Hulk is going to rip this place apart!
We brought in 5 actresses. They all read with Sam, and fake scene that I wrote just for the audition, and then she absolutely had a completely different quality than everybody else. And ultimately, I think it came down to, there's a moment where Nick Fury makes Maria Hill point a gun at him in the scene. And for me, it all boiled down to the fact that when she pointed that gun at him, I thought she might shoot him. Even though I had written the scene and she doesn't, I really thought she's going to take him down.
Maria Hill's obviously manifested by the gorgeous Colby Smulders. Very beautiful boss to have. If she's my boss, like Agent Coulson, I had a little trouble wrapping my head around that. So, I view her as someone who thinks that she's
of the Marvel Universe. He is the actor and the character that ties every single film together.
He changed everything around here. He has your action figure.
Oh, he does?
Yes, he does. Sometimes someone comes in and they were supposed to mean this much, and because of their personality and the possibilities, they wind up encompassing this much, and that's Clark. And he plays it so straight, but he's a bit of a tear-up,
He's a combat logistics of the dance.
Clark is so good at playing the funny with the serious, and he's become kind of a fan favorite.
You like this?
The thing about Sam is I always think that there are 2 of him. He's famous for the sort of bravura, Pulp Fiction, speechifying. This is a guy who can, out-moxie anybody in the room.
He's responsible for everything that happens here. All the good, everything else is my fault.
But of course, I'm also very much in love with the great well of sadness that he brings. He doesn't oversell when he goes to that place. He's still being Nick Fury, but he's opening up in a way that you don't necessarily expect.
Samuel L. Jackson is a cinematic icon. His voice is familiar to pretty much everyone who's ever watched a movie in the world.
Standing there next to him, I just fell apart. And I was really nervous. He's such a ringer, he hits it every time. And he's just a really generous, fun guy.
In a way, it's his movie. I mean, he is the narrator of this film. You have to give him more than just, pomp or bluster. The film won't sustain. We have Earth's mightiest heroes, and they are all these extraordinary actors playing these extraordinary characters.
Watching all of them work and their different styles and getting everyone together in one big scene has been really exciting.
The cast is just insane. When do you ever get to see this group of actors come together?
They're some of the greatest actors in the whole world. It's been absolutely amazing.